got 7 stalwarts. I'm absolutely looking forward to this. I was looking carefully that, how much time do I have? And then I realized it's 1 hour, 15 minutes, so I can pace it up nicely. It's nice to have, several of my friends on the screen, with whom I deal very regularly. So I'm going to ask all the tough questions that people ask me to these 7 individuals, and I draw knowledge from them and then bundle it into a different perspective and send it out. But really, I love the topic as well, Kathy. What Anurag, Sapna, and Tripti put together. Will last mile funding, which was triggered by the government and now supported by the private equity guys, would it revive the Indian real estate sector? I think it's interesting. And one thing that comes up, Irfan, I'm going to go straight to you. When last mile funding comes up, the only name that comes up straight is SWAMIH Fund. Last mile funding means equal to SWAMIH Fund. And I was reading this morning, and it said I think this was some news that came in that over 30 housing projects worth 4,200 crores had received final approval from yourself, from SWAMIH Fund. I don't know whether those are right numbers or not, but that's what it said. I have 3 very simple questions, Irfan. One is, what has your experience been? You come from a very different, not very different field, but none of us knew what this fund was about. Would love to know whether what you had expected this to be exactly what it is, or it is very different. The second, is 25,000 crores going to be sufficient? And third, how difficult it is to get an NOC from the NBFCs who have to cede the first charge to you and not get sort of paid for the debt to begin with. Ultimately, whatever is left, they will get paid. So 3 simple things. What has your experience been? Did you expect this to be exactly what it is? Do you think 25,000 crores may be insufficient? And the third one is how difficult it is to get the NOCs. Sorry, Irfan, you're on mute.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for this, giving me a chance to appear on this webinar. Anush, to answer your questions, first one, my experience with this fund, unparalleled, unprecedented. You can use the word to describe the SWAMIH Fund, and like you said, SWAMIH Fund has got more brand recognition than most brands in real estate within a very, very, very short period of time, right? I personally don't know of any other real estate fund that has a social impact objective. So in that way, we are very different. It is a fund with a social impact objective, with a clearly defined mandate to complete construction. And that kind of mandate, like I said, is one, not seen or heard before. And 2, it is of a scale that is also not seen in a domestic real estate fund, at least in the past, right? So we knew this was different, and we knew we had to get different results this time from funding real estate. And the obvious thing is that if you want to do something different, you have to do things maybe differently than what they have been done in the past before, right? You cannot expect to get different results by doing the same things all over again. So our experience, and we've been learning, it's a continuous learning program for us as well, and that's reflected in the way we have molded our requirements to not just demands but the requirements of the industry. So first things first, what we did very differently from the way funding has been looked at in the past is we have looked at this as last mile funding. And when we spoke of last mile funding, and when we speak of last mile funding, we talk of that as funding that by itself is sufficient to complete the project. So funding that is not reliant, that is not dependent on the ecosystem, on the environment, on sales going ahead. There is maybe some reliance on receivables, and that the extent of that depends on what our diligence tells us about the quality of those receivables. But that's about it. The funding here is only is by itself sufficient to complete. And this is different from what every banker and lender has, and every developer for that matter, has, sought funding for. So for example, I personally believe there is a magic number 25 crores, right? Every developer tells me that 25 crore, it will set everything, right? It doesn't. It has been tried before, it has been tested before, and there is enough evidence of the results floating around, right? So we had to do something different. So that's one. Two, what we did different was, for the first time, a private equity fund is looking at a project, not a promoter. And when he sees a project, he sees trapped home buyers in distress, and steps in to rescue that. He does not pass value statements on, the ethics of the promoter, on the track record of the promoter, on the demand-supply situation in the vicinity, right? He decides that there is a home buyer that needs to be rescued, and they step in when everybody is running out, like that fireman example. So we come in when no one else is willing to provide funding. I don't mean to be dramatic, but that's the way the approach to the funding is. We have no geographical preference, right? We are not a fund that says we have a sweet spot of 75 crores and we generally do our investments in MMR and Bangalore. We do our investments anywhere in India where RERA is applicable. And these are not high and mighty statements. We are currently spread out, I think, over 30 locations in the country. So that's a significant spread in a very short period of time. We also don't have a sweet spot, like I said. So we look at deals between, up to 800 crores. The maximum exposure we take in a single investment is 400. So we have the right to do multiple deals with the same developer till we reach a cap of 800 crores. Our funding is also very different from the way funding has generally been looked at. So our funding places an emphasis on construction, on completion of construction. It does not even talk about repayment till the construction is complete. It is completely back-ended. It emphasizes that even inflows will be used not to service the lender or the investor, but will be used to accelerate the project. It talks about funding that will be simultaneously available on various fronts, so that while you are waiting for cement to dry in one location, in another part in the same project, you can continue with. You can start finishing while you are still going up vertically. So it's going to dramatically reduce the construction timeline. Finally, I think a big difference that we have inculcated here, and which will be observed more and more going ahead, is we are not talking about funding developers, we are talking about funding projects. And that is reflected in the manner in which disbursements happen. So I have worked in several private equity funds in the past, and we've not done weekly funding for every project that we get into. Funding is against visible progress. Funding is against measurable progress, and funding is done frequently. There is no lump sum funding, there is no war chest that is given to them, there is no petty cash amount that is with them. So my team acts as a project CFO. The developer will lead the project, but my team acts as a project CFO, authorizing, approving, vetting every payment that is done, and we use the project of a project services of a project management company that's actually stationed at the project, right? So we have daily reports on material coming in, on labor mobilization, on physical progress, and especially on safety. So we are trying to place an emphasis and a premium on safety also at our work sites. So that's how we are doing things slightly differently, and we are hopeful that the results will therefore be different.
No, this is fantastic. This is really very comprehensive, and I loved it when you said the sweet spot is 25 crores. It is true. Most of the guys come in and says, "I just need 25 crores," and it is absolutely true. What you said is, but equally, I think 3-4 very interesting things is, and sometimes you wonder is that why is SWAMIH fund given money to a certain developer? As you said, is that we're not looking at the track record of the developer. We're actually looking at the track record of the project, and we're looking at the demand supply. We're a social impact fund, and location is not really a preference. It is wherever the project is, as you rightly said, is out of whatever projects that you funded. They are in very different locations. 30 different locations. It is absolutely interesting, and it found, to some extent, it has opened up the doors for other funds to come in. But perhaps they're at a little disadvantage because you have you have been given preferred status by the government on a couple of things. I don't know whether the private guys who are wanting to set this up would be able to get the same advantage as you've got.
So, first things first, we are doing things differently, like I said, and therefore, if social impact is the objective, and there are public funds involved, the government is stepping in to ensure that the objective is met and public funds are secured, right? That is the role that the statutory protection that we have is playing here. So it is not like private sector. There is a private sector fund that is being given incremental government protection to generate private returns. So we are not. So that's one. So that's my immediate reaction to that.
Yeah.
Anuj.
So just tell me, Irfan, how easy or difficult it is to get the NOCs from the NBFCs?
So I'll say we have a track record already to show that while it's difficult, it is still possible. So I think one of your earlier questions also was, where are we in terms of, achievements so far, or how many projects have we funded? We are glad to report, and we do it very publicly. We are amongst the most public private equity funds ever, and that always gets a smile to my face, at least when I think about it, because otherwise the investment objective, the mandate, the strategy, the restrictions were known to the investment manager and their investors, and that's about it, right? This is, developers can correct me if I misstate something here. Everybody knows about our fund. We have completed about 26 IC meetings so far, which is a huge thing in 9 months. We have provided funding to about 33 projects that will complete construction of about 25,000 homes. So we began final approvals to about 33 projects. About 1 in 3 projects are where sites have actually are now fully functional as a result of our funding. About 95 projects have received preliminary clearance, and if we manage to fund all the projects that we hope to fund, about 84,000 homes will get completed. That in itself tells you that we have got the NOCs required, right? It is, but it's been a very difficult road. There is no doubt about it. So while we come in to rescue the home buyer, and while we hope that a change in the project fortunes will also ultimately benefit the lender, the initial reaction hasn't been that they would work with us all the way. So while there are a set of investors, there are a set of lenders who have worked closely with us, there is a large subset of projects that do not have any lenders to start with. So we can get significant progress on those projects straight away, and then even projects where there are lenders. We have, like I said, been through a continuous learning process in the last 9 months or so. We have heard, and reacted to feedback faster than, at least we had some notions about how fast bureaucracy works, and at least the bureaucrats I work with work a lot faster than I do. I'm, trying to keep pace with them most of the time. Even you have interacted with some of them, so you know who the people I'm talking about, right? So we have actually even molded the mandate, carved out special features in the mandate to be more accommodative to lenders, and as a result, we are seeing more and more lenders come on board. So we are now sharing a portion of the cash flows with the existing lenders. We are sharing a portion of the security with the existing lenders, and that gives the lenders some amount of cash flow on their investment, some first charge on their investment, so they are more willing to seed charge. That is also an approach that we also had to educate a lot of home buyers in the process, right? That we need to ensure that the project survives. We are on your side. Help us complete your homes. Taking action against one party might end up hurting yourself in the process. So give us time. We have the funds. We will supervise the completion of the project. We will ensure, or at least try to ensure, that mistakes of the past aren't repeated, and therefore complete the project. And therefore, we've had to convince all the stakeholders, lenders as well as home buyers, to actually do what we've done so far.
Yeah, but good point. I forgot about that. Is it fun? Is the home buyers as well, because you have to take their blessings equally going forward.